These guys are all out here. That's going to throw me off tonight. What to do with these guys out in this side of the room? Yeah. Well, it is 7 o'clock. It's time to get started this evening, and I've asked Randy to open us with a word of prayer, and then we'll get started this evening. Amen. Thank you. So this evening, I was going to do Psalm 150 because that was the third one that I was tasked with covering, but because of, and he's not even here to defend himself because somebody fell through, I'm up here instead of him tonight. And so I thought, well, and it's just scheduling. It isn't, I don't mean to call Matt out. It's just the way that it worked out. Like I said, he's not here to defend himself. Just the way that it worked out so that I'm here and he's not, and that's all good. But there's a part of me that's a little bit OCD, and I couldn't do Psalm 150 in the middle of this because we still have at least 2 more weeks because Psalm 150 is the end, and it needs to be at the end. Although it doesn't, it wasn't intended to wrap up the book. That's just where it ended up. But it is a good psalm to finish this study on the Psalms. And so I picked a different psalm that I put together the lesson for this evening this week. And for some reason, my computer shut off. Make sure I'm plugged in. Yep, we're good. Okay. Anyway, so the psalm for tonight, most of you, I'm going to start with a little bit of a story about our history from Quincy, because in Quincy, wait, let me back up even before that, because this psalm that I picked, I just, kind of was looking around going, let's pick one, open it up. That one looks good. The other 2 I picked because they were weird. They had difficult things in them that I wanted to understand for myself by digging into them. And so this one I just thought, okay, I'm just going to open it and pick this psalm. And I don't know if this ever happened to you where you open the Bible and you just start reading in Proverbs, or you start reading in Psalms, or you just start reading verses and you go, wow, that's what I needed. That psalm fit my life right now and what I'm doing. That psalm is, or scripture, verse, whatever it is, just worked out well and was super helpful to me. Have any of you guys ever had that happen where you just open it up and it just feels totally random? It's not. It's not totally random. It's God helping you. And this psalm was that for me. I feel like it's what I need in my life right now. And so back to my introduction. Most of the guys, the family that we worshiped with in Quincy were from Southern California. 3 or 4 of the families were all transplants from down there. And I know that we have a few members here, maybe more that I know about, who are also from California originally. And so they've experienced earthquakes. And I've been through two really small ones where a few things, it's just like a little bit of a rattle. And you got to go check the news and go, okay, yeah, that was an earthquake situation. But if you've ever been through one, or I know you've all seen footage of earthquakes, and there's been all kinds of devastation shown from, things like this tsunami over the years. When you see the devastation from an earthquake, you see bridges falling, holes opening up in the road, buildings toppled, dust swirling in the air as they're trying to find people. It's frightening. Or maybe you've been through floods or seen, I know, again, we've all seen floods with all the things that happened in the Gulf over the years and Louisiana and all those things. And you see these images of floods where people are on the roof of their house watching as cars and trees and all manner of debris. I even saw one time an entire garbage truck floating down what should have been a road. Or there's images where what used to be land is now opened into a massive chasm as the water has poured through and eroded that into the stream, the larger stream, and now you've got this great giant cavern there. It must be really traumatic if you're there in person. It's hard enough to look at for us when we're not actually there. Our psalm this evening starts out like that. But you'll be happy to know that the psalm for tonight isn't as weird or dark as the other ones. It doesn't end that way. It doesn't stay with the earthquakes and the floods. And so it's not dark and depressing like the last two that I brought were. It's just coincidence that those two happen to be that way. So tonight's is actually the reverse. The psalm is often labeled as a confidence psalm because it expresses trust in God in the midst of great turmoil. It's part of a group of psalms that are labeled the Zion hymns, which are 46, 48, 76, 84, 87, 122, 132, and some, oddly enough, include 137, which we did last week. These psalms celebrate Mount Zion, which is originally referred to a specific hill in Jerusalem. And then it came to mean all of Jerusalem, or the Temple Mount, or God's dwelling place is what that Mount Zion has come to mean for us. And there's several common themes in these psalms. You see God's presence. Zion is where God chooses to dwell. They talk about his divine kingship. God rules from Zion as king over the earth. There's security and protection that are talked about. Zion is unshakable because God is within her. There's often talk of pilgrimage and worship. Zion is the center of worship and festivals and joy and all of those things. And it's hope for the future. Because Zion is the focus of God's redemptive plan and his blessings. And so tonight we're going to look at slide Psalm 46. You know what I just did there? I read what was on the teleprompter to you that I wasn't supposed to. That's great. Oddly enough, this psalm doesn't contain the word Zion, but it is included in one of those psalms, and verse 4 through 7 will make it clear why that is. And this psalm is broken into 3 stanzas, and we'll see in just a second that it is actually a song, which you've probably started reading ahead, but so stanza 1 is 1 through 3, stanza 2 is verses 4 through 7, and then stanza 3 is verses 8 through 11. And right at the beginning of that, it says, for the choir director, a psalm of the sons of Korah, set to Alamoth, a song. So it tells you right there that it's a song that what we're looking at this evening. And it doesn't really matter what that set to Alamoth means in terms of what we're going to look at and what the meaning of the psalm is. But it's an interesting side note here. Let me get my note open. Come on, here we go. And so that word Alamoth, is the Hebrew word, it's a plural word, and it's the Hebrew word for young woman or maiden. And so there's two schools of thought on what that means. It's a lot of these choir directions are so old and they've lost knowing exactly what they are, and so we have to speculate as to what they mean and what they would have meant to the choir director. But the two main schools of thought on this are that it's a musical style or a register, and so it's most likely the soprano part or a high-pitched arrangement of the song, potentially originally sung by a young woman or played on a high-pitched instrument. Similar titles appear throughout the Psalms, and they refer to the lower register and potentially male groups singing them. But the other thing that we see is that the other idea is that it says set to Alamoth. And so what this might be is the title of a well-known song, where we might say in our songbooks, there's a song you don't know, but it says set to the tune of Amazing Grace. And you go, oh, okay, I know how to sing this one because it's just different words. So it's possible that's what's going on here as well, that Alamoth is one of those two things. I thought that was just interesting. I hadn't looked that up before, so you can just tuck that away for later. And Matt, you're going to have to go back and watch the video because so let's look at the first stanza here. I read that already, so we'll start just in verse 1 here. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear though the earth should change, and though the mountains slip into the heart of the sea, though it is waters roaring and foam, though the mountains quake at its swelling pride. Selah. And so verse 1 lays out the whole premise for the song for us here. God is in control, particularly in times of trouble. Very present, that means exceedingly, abundantly, and you're able to find or attain him. He is there for you all the time. God is to be found if we look. And he is there above our needs. He's always there. We might forget he's there, but he's always there. Very present, always present, exceedingly present. He's a refuge, that's shelter or hope. And he is strong, he has might, power. The word means stronghold. This is the God that we are talking about here. And then we get I went backwards. There we go. And then we get my favorite word in verse 2. Therefore. Because of the facts that we just read in verse 1, we will not fear. Fear what? The earth moving and the mountains falling and the waters raging. That's what we're not going to fear. Mountains are often used throughout the Old Testament and the Psalms in particular as a way to portray strength and security. Like you go to the mountains to be secure. But here, those mountains are being thrown into the sea. They're being shaken. So to have the sea ravage them is kind of a worst case scenario. That is a big cataclysmic event going on we're talking about here. but we will have no fear during these times. But this is poetic language. So is he talking strictly about the physical situation here? No. He's talking about all manner of challenges we might face. I suggest that that's more the point of this psalm than the physical things. He doesn't, yeah, if we're having an earthquake, you still want to put your faith and trust in God, physical earthquake. But he's using this as symbolic language to say, when you've got troubles, lean on God. What are some of the ways that we can do that? How is it that we can stand up in the face of trials? Trials this big. Prayer, yeah.
Maybe add on to that, probably just the faith that you have, and no matter what comes, the worst case scenario as such would be you would be with him in heaven.
Right. Okay. Excellent. Yeah, reading. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. We got to go back to verse 1. God is a very present help. God is right there waiting to help. And all those things are right. Those are on my list. I'm not discounting that. But the whole point of the psalm is these are the things that you just have to remember. God is there for you. He is an attainable help at all times for us. That's the start. And then prayer, and then reading, and then remembering what he's done for you before. Very similar to, Hudson, sorry.
I just like, not to jump forward or anything, but in verse 7 it says, God of Jacob is our fortress.
Don't listen to Hudson. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Even making it physical, like you're talking about how the mountains fall into the sea, and you've been talking about earthquakes and tsunamis and hurricanes and all these things that crush and destroy, and this fortress that will never move. That in the midst of all those catastrophes and all the bad things, even physically, that God is that fortress that will never move.
Absolutely. Yep. Very similar to reading and prayer, we need to meditate on God and his word, don't we? We just need to be thinking about it. We say this all the time. I need to meditate on it, but do we actually do it? Do I look around me and go, look at this might, this is all evident. The mountains that we live in are evidence of the might that one word created all that we see. And then I think that's the God who's near me. That's the God who's ever present. Jez and I love it when we can see Mount Rainier. It's our own little game that we play. And when we see it, we just say to each other, the mountain's out. And I don't need to tell her what mountain. She doesn't need to tell me. I know. I can point out Mount Adams if she doesn't care. No offense, Mount Adams. Just what it is. I love it because of its beauty, but it is a reminder every day of God's might. Look at that was created. Something else that we can do is what we're doing right now. We're drawing on the body for support when things get tough. We're joined together. We're opening God's word, and afterwards they'll be visiting and getting to know one another better and just catching up and talking about each other's problems, hopefully. And then we'll also sing together later. And I don't know if I rely on that enough, because singing to God doesn't have to just be here with the group. Turn on the practice hymns that you've got for learning, for coming here. When you're on a walk or on the lawnmower, or wherever it is, sing along, because that's going to change your mindset if you're truly listening and focusing on those words. Those are all things that are going to help us remember God and not fear the calamity and chaos that's going on around us. Let's look through the next stanza here, 4 through 7. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God. That's where we get our Zion. That's why they call it the Zion song, because of the city of God there, which we know is Zion. The holy dwelling places of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She will not be moved. God will help her when morning dawns. The nations made an uproar. The kingdoms tottered. He raised his voice. The earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our stronghold. Selah. What is this river that it's talking about here? Because there is not now, nor has there ever been, a river running through Jerusalem. So again, we're using symbolic language here. It's a symbol of the care God provides. It's spiritual sustenance that we're getting from this river, which he's going to provide for us in our time of need. That need in these lines make mention of political and physical unrest as well. So we've moved from the earth around us rolling into the sea to now we've got some political things going on, and we've got war going on, and we'll get some more of that in the next stanza. Nations and kingdoms is brought in here, and it brings this idea of war. But don't fear, because God and his kingdom will not be moved.
In verse 5, it says, God is in the midst of her. Is her talking about Zion?
I believe so, yeah. Yeah. Or this, in this case, the city, technically, which we know to be Zion. When we look around, we see that physical war. We don't need to worry because God is in control. Again, this is spiritual in context, and so the war spiritually is the world around us that Satan is in control of. That's unsettling to know that the world outside these doors is not on our side most of the time. We can get rattled by that. We can forget that God is in control, especially in this part of the world. It seems that sin is all around us and ever more pressing against us and making us feel like the outcasts. But God is amid the city. His holy city, the New Jerusalem, which that's our time, that is us. So have no fear. Because God raised his voice and the earth melted. The trouble went away at God's word. Is that a surprise to us? I don't think it should be. That God can speak and trouble will clear. Verse 7 that Hudson brought up is a refrain that appears again at the end of verse 11 to close the psalm. The Lord is with us. Just like up above, he's there. He's very near in times of trouble, very present, and he's our stronghold. What a reassuring thought that is. And it's interesting, why does he use Jacob as, the God of Jacob here? He could have used any one of the figures from the Old Testament. Any guesses why it is he uses Jacob here? And I don't know 100%. I have some ideas. Okay. That's good. Maybe that's right. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that 100%. Because it doesn't tell us why he says the God of Jacob. But what do we know about Jacob? Wrestled with God, okay. He's got, God made that personal covenant with him, right? And we know that Jacob was deeply flawed, like we all are. But it's a reminder that even a deeply flawed man, he was a deceiver. He swindled his brother out of his birthright. He did some things that weren't good. But God is still his God. And so if he can be Jacob's God, who was imperfect, he can be our God when we're imperfect. Not that that gives us the right to do that, but it's a comfort to know, because I know I'm not perfect, and I probably am not going to be from this point until the time I leave this earth. It's a comfort to know that the God of Jacob, the God of an imperfect, flawed man, will also continue to be my God if I stay the course. Questions or comments before we move on to the last stanza here? No? Okay. Third stanza, 8 through 11. Come, behold the works of the Lord, who has wrought desolation in the earth. He makes wars to cease to the ends of the earth. He breaks the bow and cuts the spear in two. He burns the chariot with fire. Cease striving and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. And here we have our refrain again. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our stronghold. Now the psalmist wants us to witness God's work. He destroyed the earth with water at the flood. He's ended wars before. He's destroyed opposing armies throughout the Old Testament. That's what all this military weapons talk is about here. It's a powerful metaphor for God as a warrior on behalf of Israel. The Israelites were given this strong picture of God as their defender and protector of the people. This worked a little bit better for them culturally than it does for us, because they were continually at war or on the brink of war or just on the backside of war. War was constant for them when you read through the Old Testament. And so that would have probably been a little bit more powerful for them than it is for us, because we're not physically at war like they were. We're constantly in a spiritual war, continually battling against Satan and the things that he's trying to accomplish in this world. And I don't know if any of you are reading either the King James or the American Standard Version. but I like that rendering better than mine's the New American 95. And I think most of you probably know this from plaques and mugs and all that. Not cease striving, as mine says, but be still and know that I'm the Lord. Or that I am God, excuse me. He switches here and quotes God in verse 10, the psalmist does. He goes from writing himself to presenting God's words to us. Be still and know that I am God. In the midst of all of this that you're seeing, be still. Be still is one word in the Hebrew. It's the word rapha, and it means to slacken, abate, cease, to sink down, to relax, to let go, or to let it go. Stronghold, again, is this idea of it's a retreat, it's a secure height, it's a refuge, it's something unassailable, the stronghold that we have of God. I like that last one, unassailable. If God is your refuge, back to verse 1, you are unassailable. You are inaccessible. Yeah, you're going to go through those things, but you're going to get through it. There's going to be hardship in your life, without doubt, but with God on your side, you can make it through. Because he's your stronghold. He's your refuge. He's the place that you go in times of trouble. Look at all that is going around in the psalmist's life. There's war and fighting and political strife. There's cataclysmic destruction of the world. That imagery is used to explain things that we go through, both physically and spiritually. The world in this psalm is literally blowing up around you. For us, that looks like strife and struggle with family and friends and our wives and maybe church family and the world at large, our boss, all of these things. Human relations of some sort are going to be the most problematic relationships we have in our life, probably the biggest trials we face. We may not see a way out. We may think, we can't stand anymore. Please stop, Lord. His answer is, be still. Be still and know that I am God. Oops. Slides are out of order. We'll get to it. It's at the end. What does that mean? Be still. How can I be still when all this stuff is... Did you read what we just talked about? And you want me to be still? That word means to cease, to abate, to relax, to let it alone. We talked about this already. Let it go. In other words, stop trying to figure it out yourself. Stop trying to fix it on your own. Stop trying to do it your way. Just sink down and be still. Because I'm your refuge. I'm your stronghold. and the Lord of hosts is with you. What are some practical ways that we can do this? We talked about some of them earlier, but I want to go through these again. Ideas? Pray. Yep. Pause to pray instead of reacting. When a storm blows up in your face. Pause to pray instead of going right to, I'm going to fix this on my own. When bad news or conflict or fear comes upon us, be still and pray. In the moment, stop, breathe, and pray. Because God is your refuge. Something else we can do. Turn to the scriptures. Excellent. I have a few that are perhaps a little more modern and appropriate for us. Turn off the noise, I would suggest. Instead of drowning out our stress with scrolling or Netflix or music or busyness, the internet in some way, always busy, sit quietly with the scriptures and meditate and read and think about, particularly a verse like 46:10. Be still and know that I am God. Refuse to fight for control. I want to fix it. I want to control it. I want to understand it. I want to know everything about what's going on. That's not the way God works. And the reality is, I can't fix everything. And if I fixed it my way, it would probably be worse than I started with anyhow. Because God has a greater plan in store than I could ever even imagine. So let go and see what God does. Pray without ceasing. Give the control to God and know that He is God. And He will handle it. Focus on God in the storm. Very similar to the last one. But when things get chaotic around you, like we already talked about, sing praises to God. Take time to journal and write down the things that you're grateful for, that you can see God's done in your life. And again, meditate on the Word. Focus on God in the storm. Put Him first before you step out and try and fix it on your own. Then Olivia talked about this one earlier. Remember God's track record. Think back over your life. How often do we look back and realize, oh, that's what God was doing there. I'm glad I didn't do it my way. Think about all that He has guided you through so far. Write out that list of answered prayers. And the last one, slow down. Particularly on Sundays, take Sunday for what it is. It's the Lord's day. Everything else can wait. Everything else should wait. Focus for one day out of the week on God and his Son and what they've done for you. And better yet, what you can do for him. Slow down. For us as Christians, we realize that God, he doesn't dwell in a physical city anymore. When that veil was torn in two, it was a signal that God's presence would go out into all the world. We've been told that we're the temple now. We're the New Jerusalem. We see that in Hebrews 12, 22 and 23. 1 Corinthians 3, 16 and 17. What we're seeing here is that God put an end to all the things that could physically defeat us. He melted the earth with his voice. He did that with a word. And that single word is Christ. In him we have refuge, a stronghold, and all fear should be gone. If we trust him, and we follow him, and we obey him, nothing can touch us. So be still and know that I am God. That's all I've got for this evening. Any questions or comments before we?
What's your feeling about the word Selah that's in there 3 times? Because I've never been able to figure out definitively.
I don't know. I didn't look at that. I mean, it's a marker for. Yeah, it's a.
Some people think it's a musical term or something.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
And then the other one that I see a lot is that it's just used to separate sections of text, which in this one is perfect as 3 sections.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is. It's there in this particularly to do that, to break those into 3 sections. Oh,
I kind of found it as in Florida, I kind of did a study over the Psalms, and kind of as a time to pause and reflect. And like you kind of said about this psalm is 3 stanzas. You read the first 2 verses, pause, reflect. You read the next 2 verses, pause, reflect. Then you finish, and then you pause and reflect, even at the end of the chapter.
gotcha. Okay.
And that's kind of what I got.
You mean for the word salah?
Yeah.
Okay. Oliver?
It's a technical question about the psalm. On like Nancy's Bible, the verse 1 starts on God is our refuge and strength. In my Bible, it doesn't have a number 1, and in the one you used, to the chief musician, a psalm of the sons of Korah is number 1. And I've seen different translations that start with the number 1 on all 2 places, or they avoid it by not putting the number 1.
Right.
Is there a reason that you chose that one? I mean, because I've looked for whether to call that 1 or not on the song.
Right.
Is there a reason that you?
I left it out only because, or not left it out, I mean, I read it, but I start at 1 because I think the message starts with what I have listed as verse 1. I mean, that bit is for it's a technical note to me.
To the chief musician?
Yeah,
But in your text on the overhead, on verse 1, you actually have number 1 starting on the
I did?
Yeah.
Oh,
What?
that's just the version that I copied it out of.
Okay.
So that wasn't anything I did purposefully.
I see.
Yeah. I personally like starting it with God is our refuge, because I think that's the meat of what we're getting at here. The other stuff is just, it's there, but it's, technical stuff for the people who would have been in charge of leading those psalms, to me. All right? Nothing else? Okay. Class dismissed.